They say art imitates life, but there are those of us who believe art is the thing that really teaches us what life is all about. Today's lesson features a woman who shines a bright light with Detroit's hard-driving art community, Gilda Snowden.
Funding for Artbeat is made possible by Maniscalco Gallery, fine art, commissioned portraiture, custom framing, and art classes, located in Grosse Pointe, and from contributions by members of Detroit Public Television. Thank you.
I've made my way to Brooklyn. I'm talking about 2000 Brooklyn. It's a concentration of artists, lofts, where people are producing work that you might say is Detroit art. It's where Detroit art happens. Inside 2000 Brooklyn, you're going to see a lot of the artwork that is produced by the residents here. And some of the top artists in Detroit work out of this place. Let's go up and talk to Gilda. I think she's on the 3rd floor. Third floor. Okay. I know she's here somewhere. Ah! There's one of her early works. Okay, Gilda Snowden, here we come. Gilda Snowden is PBS! Ah. Aha, she's back here. Let's see what's with. Aha, okay. Aha. Oh, come on around over here. All right, what do you got going here, Gilda?
Well,
how you doing?
How are you?
Good.
Hi. I'm in the middle of working on 3 pictures that are giving me a little bit of trouble right now, but that's all right.
What's the trouble here? Maybe we can help you out.
I wish you could. You know, I need to change these pictures drastically. I need to turn them from what they are into something else.
All right.
And I don't like doing that, but once I get into it, I kind of forget that I have trouble and I just have fun painting.
Right.
And
once
so
you get
that's the
past
most important thing. Yeah.
So what do you focus on to get yourself through that trouble period into the place where you're into the zone?
Believe it or not, it's as simple as I'll wipe off my brush, I'll grab some paint, and I'll just make a mark. And then I'll make another mark. And then I like the way that mark reacts with the surface that's already there.
Right, and this is a thick surface.
Yeah, it's a real thick surface. It's real thick, and it is layered, and it's got lots of stuff in it. But one thing I like to have happen is have all that previous history come through. So you get up close and you see all these little colors, and I try to remember.
Of paint.
Yeah, I try to remember which one was the first color I put down.
Yeah.
And I think it's this light yellow right here.
The imprimatura. We use technical words, yeah.
Oh, yes, I remember that from school.
Yeah.
It's funny, a lot of the things that you learned in school, in art school, you kind of forget.
Yeah.
And then you remember them in the action of painting.
Yes. Well, they become part of your psyche rather than an intellectual part. They move from your left brain into this other place.
I think I work more with my front brain and my back brain.
Ooh,
but
yeah.
No one's written a book on that yet.
I know. That's an interesting thing because that front brain is very filled with mental activity and the back brain is very primal and primitive. Is that what you're going after?
It must be because I think I've heard my paintings called primitive.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're the energy. So I don't want to interrupt you. Let's just let you put some marks down. You're working on 3 paintings at once.
I always work in a series. I can never work on one painting at a time. It's outside of my realm of experience. I have to work on more than one. I had a show at the Cass Cafe earlier this year, and when I was working on that show, I had practically all the paintings up at one time, all around the studio.
And you were working on that time as sort of a series of chairs.
Chairs and also pieces that were based on the paintings, or the poetry of Federico Garcia Lorca.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're interested now in taking these from what was, and we'll talk about this, the Tornado series.
Right.
Which is a series that you had worked on for many years. And
Yes.
now you're working on taking these paintings, which no longer are doing it for you, and taking them into this other place.
Well, what happened with these three in particular, I don't dislike them, but what happened was I got stuck at a certain point and I wanted them to have a certain new freshness. And so I got involved with these chairs from the Garcia Lorca paintings because he referred to chairs. And so now I'm imbuing these pictures with elements of the chair, the armrests, the legs,
But so
the
not,
seat.
but not literally in the
No.
sense of trying to honor.
No, I'm not
forms.
trying to paint a picture of a chair.
Right.
I don't care whether anybody sees it as being a chair or not. I know it's there. And that's a little selfish, I guess, but
Well, not really. It's poetic. It's the difference between literal and poetry.
well, yeah, I guess that's right.
Huh.
There's a lot of poetry I don't understand either.
Yeah.
But that's okay. It doesn't mean it's not good. It just means that I need to educate myself a little better.
Well, isn't part of the idea of poetry to be mysterious? If you understood it, it wouldn't be poetry. If you understood it in all of its levels all at once, you know what I mean? It's one of
Well,
those.
you can say that about any work of art.
Yeah.
You can look at a John Singer Sargent and see that there are certain kinds of elements and aspects of his own iconography that we can't get right away. At first we see Madame X or
Right.
this and that, but he's got secrets. And I like to think that every artist has their secrets.
Yeah. Oh, look at that. You're getting a little shape here of something, of a shape.
I don't deny the tornado that's in there.
Yeah.
It'll still be, it won't be completely covered up or hidden,
Right.
but the basis of that will be in that.
Right.
And it's something that gives me pleasure when I'm working.
Are you in a way responding to the painting itself? It's like
Oh,
a
definitely.
conversation, I guess, huh?
Yeah, it's between me and me. See, a long time ago, long time ago, I thought I wanted to be an advertising artist, and I studied advertising art and trying to please clientele
Right.
but it wasn't really in my heart. And then I had a epiphany where I said to myself, I want to do this for myself. I don't want to please anybody else. And so I just started to go into that, and I had to make a lot of decisions, life decisions about how I was going to support myself, how I was going to maintain a studio. And all of those questions just began to answer themselves once I became true to what it was I really wanted to do. I don't think I would have been a very good person working in an art advertising agency. It would have been just a job, whereas this is a vocation. This is something that gives me a lot of pleasure. And I hope that it gives other people pleasure. So right now what I'm doing is I'm in the process of trying to establish a skeletal framework on these canvases. And since I'm working with acrylic paint now, this will dry very quickly and I can put on layers and layers and layers and have those changes. I've had some paintings that come off the surface about an inch. I try not to do that just as a matter of course, but if it goes that way, then it goes that way.
Yeah, essentially what we see at the beginning of this painting is not at all what we're going to see at the end. It's
Right.
it's layering and a process of interacting.
And I like to say or think that at a certain point, all of my paintings are very ugly. I look at them and say, oh God, it looks like barf. And there may be some people out there who say, yeah, they still do, even though I'm done. But that's okay, everybody's got their opinion.
Yeah.
I know that that's a stage that I have to work through.
Yeah.
And once I work through, I don't give up on it.
How do you work through that stage? So many people who approach art their ego gets right involved. You know, Picasso said, "I leave my ego at the door when he works." How do you get past this judgment of your work so that you can get to the pure joy, the sensuality of just putting, you know, that? Because what I see when you're working is this sensual pleasure.
Yeah, it's very.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say one-dimensional right now, but ultimately, what I think about is if these paintings are going to be shared, if they're going to be seen at some point, I think about my audience and my peers who know my work and they know what's good and what's not good. And so I'm kind of like working to them to a certain degree. I think, well, I have a certain few people that I really value their judgment about my work. And so I will not put a bad painting up because I want to know what they say.
Yeah.
Because they'll look at me and they'll say, "Gilda, you didn't hit the marks with this one." Whereas somebody who may not know my work, they'll look at it and say, "Oh, that's so beautiful," or "Oh, I just love that." But they're really responding to something more about, "I like red," or "I like the way that she used paint," and they're not looking at the whole work.
Right. Well, you know, this work can be looked at with on so many different levels.
Sure it can.
Obviously, the poetic level, the fact that, you know, someone recognizes a chair. Oh, I see a chair, and
Right.
that might be enough to satisfy that person.
And that's perfectly all right. I don't care if somebody comes up to the piece and says, "You know, I see a dog and a little boy in that one." And I say, "You do? Show it to me." And then they'll show it to me, and then I'll see it, and I'll say, "Hey, there is a dog and a little boy," or a Christmas tree, or what have you. And that's what they get out of it.
So do you find that the viewer teaches you sometimes about what it is you're doing?
Oh, definitely. I especially like to show my work to kids. Last week I did a workshop at Wayne County Community College, 4th Street branch, and I spoke with 70 children who were there for a day camp.
Yeah.
And they asked questions about the work, and they were really intelligent, insightful kinds of comments that they had.
Yeah, but they're probably not cluttered up with all kinds of what they're supposed to be seeing when they look at a painting and what is right and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, they see art as something that is integral to their everyday experience because they draw and they may paint or take some mud and try to make it into something. And so when I hear them talk, I think, yeah, you know, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
About one of the things I talked to them about was how making art gives you a sense of power. How you can share that power with other people if you have put it into your work. And so I try to do that for myself. I say, where's the power in this? Do I feel powerful when I do this?
Because if you feel powerful when you're doing it, chances are the viewer will feel that power and that
Probably,
energy.
yeah.
It's in the paint. What a wonderful studio space you've created in here. This is going to be a lovely one.
I love this space. Yeah, this
Yes.
is a really good place to do art. I've been here for 5 years. Prior to that, I was in Harmony Park, and I moved here because I needed the light and the space and
But all
yeah, the ability
it's like
to
a kid in a candy store.
lay all my things out, to have my work and my paints here, and then these walls which I had built. And so now I should go over here and get this work. I want to show you some work that I've been doing recently. Here's a piece that I had at the Cass Cafe in the Lorca show, which was a collaboration between myself and my husband, William Boswell. He translated the Romancero Gitano series of paintings by Federico Garcia Lorca. I read the translations, and then I responded by doing these paintings.
Right.
Let's just set that one there.
Okay. Aha.
And this is a part of a mini-series called The Sea of Made and Broken Promises. All of the paintings, the titles of the paintings, were lines from the poetry.
Yeah.
And so that's where I drew from. That's what I began to bounce off from. And I found a shape that I wanted to repeat. And then I used the physicality of the paint in order to help flesh out the negative spaces and give a kind of visual crunch to the overall picture.
Wow. And then let's see what else you have here. We can put that here.
Well,
be careful.
I have lots of different things in here. If you can follow me this way.
Yeah, all right.
What I'd like to show you is some of my earlier work that I have up. And I do that because I believe that my studio functions as a place of my own personal history. So I have the tornadoes, I have the sculpture, I even have several works of paintings and sculpture that I did when I was a student at Wayne State. And I like to be reminded of that work. I like to confront my past as much as possible.
Yeah, well, it's all who you are, right? And I think that's, that's interesting. We all talk about our roots and our connection with our own history, and we all talk about the history of our culture that we come from and all that.
Well, not only my own history, but you notice that I have a lot of books, and this only represents a portion of my library. So I have books on artists, on art history, and I use these in preparing for my classes at CCS.
Yeah.
And this is some more work, and these are more of the tornado series of pictures, and also a series of landscapes that are from the tornadoes, because after all, tornadoes live in a landscape.
Yes. Well, your tornadoes kind of include a little terrestrial as well as the sort of the center of the storm.
Yes, I try to see as many different ways of utilizing that format as possible.
Yeah. So, the old question is, what have you done for me lately? What are you doing now, Hilda?
Well, I'm working on a series of pieces that ultimately will be in several Detroit public schools. And what I have here, I want to show you are some of the preliminary sketches for these paintings.
Right.
For example, what I'm doing is I'm highlighting people, artists in the community. And this happens to be a photograph that I worked in Photoshop of Jocelyn Rainey, who was one of my students at CCS, who is now a gallery owner and teacher. And then another one that I would like to show you has to do with a more historical point of view. Lewis Latimer was an African-American engineer and inventor who worked with Thomas Edison. So I found manhole covers from 1914 in the city of Detroit from the Edison Illuminating Company, and then I collaged them onto this surface and then painted into it, and then somehow the shapes turned into light bulbs. These will all be translated into pieces that are 40 by 60 inches that will then be in the schools.
Now this is sort of a work for hire in a sense. That did they tell you that they wanted to work with Latimer? Are you actually bringing in ideas that you, historical things that you would like to document in your work?
I bring those ideas in. They had a very basic subject matter that they wanted me to work with. I had to do the research. I had to look for the color schemes, and then I decided how I was going to illustrate them. But it was basically within a structure.
Right, and it's and it's interesting give and take that you have to do, because we were talking about how you love it. Speaking of doing what you want to do, there's a beautiful blank canvas over there that's just calling for some paint.
Oh, I guess it is.
Give us a little idea how you start a piece of art. All right, let's go do that. Okay, a white canvas. Wait, Gilda, you can't mess up the white canvas. Ah! So white canvases don't bother you. They don't intimidate you.
I have to get the paint on and get rid of the white. I have to make the surface have quality and character.
Quality meaning paint quality, meaning
paint quality.
Texture, the surface in the, right.
And again, since I'm using acrylic paint, I don't have to worry about layering, put marks on. Another thing, working on paper against this hard wall, I can really get into it and make marks. Now, this is all underpainting, and a lot of this will not be seen unless you get up very close and you peer into it, which is something that I invite people to do.
Well, you know, one of the things I love to do when I look at a Van Gogh or this kind of work is to actually try to retrace the artist's steps. You know, when we're looking at a finished work, we only see the last layer, right? But what is actually happening is a building up of layers. And it's very interesting to me to try to pick through down to this layer, this first layer.
Another thing you have to remember, I'm a trained artist, trained in a very figurative manner. And so all of that is underneath this.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. You know, so many people think, oh, you don't have to really know anything about painting or art to do this kind of work. And there are truly outsider artists who don't have any training, but still. You know, you tell us a little bit more about your background, if you can, while you're still working here.
Well, I studied with Robert Wilbert and Tom Parrish and John Egner, and then once I got out of school, I still studied. I still looked at art. But there have been artists who decided early on, why should I study figuration if I know I'm going to be an abstract artist? And I think one of those was Frank Stella, who is doing really well right now.
Right.
So the whole idea of the nature of art education is something that is flexible and malleable and is changeable. And
it depends, of course, on the person studying. The person studying has to kind of be a participant, you know, active participant in their in their own, you know, what they're bringing into their psyche. You know, what they're feeding themselves in terms of inspiration and instruction.
Well, I like to think of it as you can do whatever you want.
Now, what does that do for you when I
put this blue on?
Yeah, isn't it?
I'm just trying to get rid of that white.
You're just trying to get rid of that
white.
But
I'm not just slapping on any color. What I'm putting on are colors that are within a realm. You can see the blue and the purple, and then the yellowish orange is basically in the realm of a complementary.
Do you keep working back from complement to complement, orange to blue to purple?
I do a lot of that early on because complements react with one another in a very dynamic and vital way.
And does that help keep you focused and keep you excited about it? There's that simple yin-yang of complements back and forth, that is opposite colors on the wheel?
I think about that, but then most of the time I'm like a little kid in a candy shop. You know? I just put this paint on and it feels real good. And I know that you can't relate to this.
Oh, right. Sensual painting? Or
I didn't say that.
What are you saying I can't relate to?
Well, no, I shouldn't have said that. That's something.
Oh, come on, let's have it out right now.
No.
Let's have the battle of the abstractists and the representationalists right now.
No, there's no battle. There's no such thing.
That's right.
There's no line of demarcation.
Yes.
People who are painters are painters.
That's right. You know, and I've said this before, that a good realist is somebody who is abstracting, and a good abstractist is somebody who's seeing, I don't know what. Who knows? You know, there's no right or wrong, and there's no absolute truth to this. It's simply what works for you.
It works for me.
It's certainly working for me.
I like to think of now, instead of other painters, I look at people who make quilts. I look at cloth patterns. When I went to CAS, I was a fashion and textile design major.
Yes, it does have a certain weaving quality. You know?
So I think in terms of that, the pattern of the colors and how they repeat across the picture.
You're dealing with things like variety, you're dealing with, you know, elements that are common to all art. Visual elements.
Yeah, and they're all in there.
Balance.
I'm not really inventing anything. I'm an abstract expressionist. I mean, the art that really floats my boat is more like de Kooning or Franz Kline especially.
Yeah, do you ever get out a dustpan and really make big strokes like a de Kooning kind of a thing? Is that?
Well, I use big brushes, but I don't really. I have a friend who I know that paints with brooms.
Right. I've noticed you haven't used your hands.
Well,
you don't use. I don't see you. You know, getting your hands involved. You do?
I do later, but not at this stage.
I see. You're trying to put down bold strokes right now that are going to be part of your surface.
Oops, I don't want that blue. I want
Yeah, you know, so many people, when they approach art, especially a blank canvas, get very precious about what it is that they've just done, and you know, you're not taking time to sit there and say, oh, I like this or I don't like this. You're just...
Well, early on in the picture, it's not about preciousness, at least not for me. Early on in a picture, it's about getting the surface down.
Yes.
It's about laying the foundation. And the foundation has to be a strong one so that whatever I put on top will function in a proper manner, like in the pieces I did earlier. I started off with something and I end up with something else. The work has as much mystery for me now as anything, and I like to include that mystery. I don't want to be able to predict everything that's happening in my work.
Well, I'm out of here if someone will let me out of here. This is Art Beat.